So there's been this absolutely massive legal battle brewing right at the heart of NASCAR. We're talking the main sanctioning body versus some of its most prominent teams. And just when it seemed like it was all about to explode, it just stopped. So what in the world happened? Let's get into it.
All right, let's just start with the number that should make your jaw drop. $182.5 million. Yeah, according to antitrust experts, that's the ballpark figure, the high-end guess of what NASCAR might have paid just to make this whole thing go away.
But look, this story, it's about way more than just a giant check. It's really about power. It's about control. And honestly, it's about completely reshaping the business of the sport. So, what was this fight really all about?
Okay, let's break this down. At its heart, this whole thing was a classic antitrust lawsuit. I mean, it all boiled down to one fundamental question. Who really controls the money and the structure of professional stock car racing?
So, on one side of the ring, you've got NASCAR, right? The organization that's always called the shots on the business side of things. And in the other corner, you have two key teams, 23XI Racing and Front Row Motorsports. And they basically threw down the gauntlet, suing NASCAR and saying, hey, this system isn't just unfair, it's illegal.
And listen, they weren't asking for a small chunk of change here. The teams were originally going after a mind-boggling $365 million in damages. A number like that tells you everything you need to know. This was set to be an absolutely epic legal war.
So that leads to the million-dollar question, right? With so much at stake, why would NASCAR suddenly decide to settle right on the doorstep of a verdict? Well, the answer comes down to two things: managing risk and, more importantly, holding on to control.
You gotta see it from NASCAR's perspective. They were looking at two totally different paths forward. If they lose in court, whoa. We're talking not just a massive payout, but a judge could have forced them to change their entire business model. That means losing control. But if they settle, yeah, it's an expensive payout for sure, but they get to make the changes themselves, on their own terms.
And get this. Think about the money they'd already spent just to get to this point. Both sides had apparently burned through a combined $50 million just on lawyers. This fight was bleeding everyone dry, and it was getting crazy expensive.
And that really nails the core reason why. An antitrust litigator named Megan Hollywood put it perfectly. She basically said the settlement wasn't just about avoiding a huge financial hit. No, it was a strategic move, a way for NASCAR to keep control over where the sport is heading.
Okay, so we know NASCAR wanted control, but what did the teams get out of this deal? I mean, yeah, there was a payout, of course, but you could argue the biggest wins for them had nothing to do with the cash. Let's take a look at what this new deal actually is.
Now, to really get what the teams won here, you have to understand the charter system. Just think of a charter like a franchise in any other major sport. It's your golden ticket. It guarantees you a spot in every single Cup Series race. The value of these things, and whether or not they were permanent, was the absolute core of this entire battle.
All right, so this settlement, it gave the teams three huge, game-changing wins. First, and this is the big one, those charters we just talked about, they're now permanent. That's a massive deal for security and value. Second, the teams get a bigger piece of the pie from international media rights. And third, they brought back something called the 5-strike rule, which is a really big deal.
And trust me, that last one, the 5-strike rule, that's a tectonic shift in power. It's basically a veto for the teams. Think about it. If NASCAR wants to do something big, like introduce some controversial new rule, and just 5 teams say, nope, we don't like it, the plan is toast. That is a straight-up transfer of power from NASCAR to the team owners. Huge.
So, okay, let's step back for a second. When you put all this together, the big settlement, the permanent charters, the extra revenue, and this new veto power, what's the bottom line? What does all this actually mean for the future of NASCAR?
Here's the most important takeaway. The entire relationship, the whole dynamic between NASCAR and its teams has fundamentally changed. The teams are no longer just, well, participants who show up to race. Now, they are permanent partners in the business, partners with real power and real financial security for the long haul.
And that leaves us with one last big question to chew on. The specific battle might be over, but you could say the fight for the future of the sport is far from finished. So did this massive settlement actually create a new era of peace and partnership, or did it just give the teams all the weapons they need for the next big fight over where NASCAR is headed? I guess we'll just have to wait and see.